All right, sports fans, welcome back to another episode of Pez's Picks. I am one of the hosts, Jeff Hartman, not the guy with the picks. That's the man, Pez here. Pez, what's going on?
Well, living the dream here, Jeff. Week out of Thanksgiving, and we're still rolling. We missed the NFL. We had our first losing week just by a game, 1-2. So after about 10 weeks, Jeff, we'll take a 1-2 if it's our worst week of the year, and we're still happy. I feel like all of our picks last week were still good picks, and in the words of our colleague Yogi, sometimes even the best pick loses, and that's why it's gambling, Jeff. That's why it's
That's right.
great. It's exciting. NFL. I don't know. One of the worst quarterback seasons I've ever seen, Jeff. It is a nightmare out there. We'd like to take the Lions more, but the Lions are just they're ridiculous. So, we're trying to tweak the system here a little bit to start looking at some of these bigger lines, and maybe they're appropriate at 10 to 13 points. And, I think we're seeing two NFLs developing here. We've got some really bad teams and some somewhat good teams. I don't know if anyone's really good, Jeff. I don't know. I don't know.
Okay.
I liked our Steelers win last week. I mean we wish we would have taken them. What a war, though, Jeff. What a war. I mean, the game of the week
Well,
last week.
yeah, but Steelers getting points at home, I was like, that just seems like that's a play that that line never made sense to me. That's one of those sucker lines that you talk about a lot on the podcast. But we'll get to the NFL and college football, which we had a winning season in college. We definitely want to spend some time there. I got to ask you what your thoughts were on the fight last week. Jake Paul, Mike
Uh,
Tyson, you put out some plays. I thought that and I did not watch this. I'm not paying for it. I'm not wasting my time because it just seemed like a circus. And so when I saw some of the highlights, read some of the reports of the fight, I thought the plus 1100 draw had some real legs, but they gave it to Jake Paul. What was your takeaway from the whole event?
it was sad, Jeff, but it was exciting still, right? We had a big fight. We had a big heavyweight fight, I guess. Jake Paul, Jeff, is not a trained boxer. He appeared to be an out of shape drunk guy at a bar. Mike Tyson came out, and for the first two rounds, he exerted as well. I mean, it looked like an older professional about to knock out a drunk guy. And I think he took a punch, Jeff, in the second round. I mean, took a face shot. And I think Mike Tyson said to himself, all I can do here is look bad. If I knock this bum out, or even if I lose, it's not changing my legacy. But if I get knocked out, then that's it. I mean, Mike Tyson's legacy goes into joke status, and he appeared to be pulling punches, Jeff. My dad was a boxer, so we were talking about it. My son was up, Jeff, my 11-year-old at 12:30 night. So good parenting there. But if there were occasional moments where Tyson had clean shots, I mean, that Jake Paul was not a tactician. His head was open, and he made contact, but pulled a little. As my dad reminded me, anytime you put 100% punch in, you you better make contact, or you're opening yourself up to a punch. And I don't think Tyson was as fit as he was in July. He had a burst ulcer. And, I think it wasn't a real fight, Jeff. It was a bit of an exhibition. Mike Tyson was not fit enough. By round five, he was surviving. So, I think the decision was proper in the end. Had we gotten another round or two out of it, we should have had that plus 1100. And I guess Vegas, the sports book got it right, Jeff. I mean, the favorite won. I don't know if he really won. It was a little bit ugly. Jake Paul has some sort of biting his glove technique. I don't know what it is, Jeff. I don't know what he's doing. He's got a lot of mouth motion. I wonder if we see part two, Jeff. I think a sequel could be in the works. We'll see. I wouldn't be shocked.
They would have to pay Tyson a lot of money. He made it sound like he's done. He wanted his kids to see him box one more time. Uh, I saw the amount of money spent in gambling on this fight. It's insane. It is
Crazy.
insane. You couldn't pay me to put a bet on this fight because nothing seemed legit about it.
No,
The
no.
slap beforehand,
Oh,
which is
God.
just to drum it up, like it seemed more WWE than it did actual fighting, but that's just me. But any final
That's
thoughts on that?
That slap terrified us, Jeff. I knew immediately that Mike Tyson was not winning that fight with that slap. That slap was not a Mike Tyson move. That man scared people by doing literally nothing, Jeff. He would just walk and stare at people. He didn't have to slap people, right? He didn't have to talk trash. He was actually polite usually. And as he got older and lost his skills, he started to say crazy stuff. And at that point, I said, this is either a joke or he knows he's in trouble. But he had two opportunities in the first two rounds where clean connection, Jake Paul was down. And you know, I expected him at 4 or 5 rounds like that. Turns out he only had 2. It's tough, Jeff. It's tough. I was talking boxing with someone today. They have sparring night here in North Wildwood. Not that I live there, but I live near there. And I talked to the kid. I said, "You're going to be able? How many rounds you doing?" He goes, 5, 5 3-minute rounds. I'm like, whoa. And this is an 18-year-old up and coming boxer. He goes, I know. I don't think I'm fit enough yet. So people don't understand the amount of energy and the amount of fitness it takes to be a boxer. It's harder than any other sport, Jeff. It's literally I mean, it's probably unhealthy. So, I'm actually proud of Mike Tyson in a way. 58 years old, have a health issue in the summer. He didn't look like Mike Tyson, but he held his own. I mean, you can give that against a guy 30 years younger than him. And I don't know. I think we'll see more. I think Netflix could. People have a thirst for heavyweight boxing and boxing in general. The undercard was great. We had a great female fight. We had a couple great lower class fights, and I think that maybe Netflix picked up on something. HBO used to do this where they were kind of the online and Showtime boxing station. So hopefully it makes a comeback, Jeff. I miss it.
We'll see. But let's talk about some football. Let's talk about the NCAA, which finally we are inching our way closer to the Mendoza line of 500. We are 19-20 on the season, coming off a 2-1 week last week. For those that forgot, here's the picks that we got right. Georgia beating Tennessee and covering the 10.5. Also, Texas State. You pulled this one out of your rear end. Texas State minus 26 over Southern Miss. They covered that. That was an exciting game, actually, if you got to see any of the highlights. And then the Texas-Arkansas was our only loss. Texas does win, but they don't cover the 13-point spread. What was your takeaway from last week?
Yeah, Texas, Jeff, was the game we were most confident about. It's the one that scored the most on our card. And I think we should have, like we talked about earlier, as long as you're making the right bets based on data, you're going to win more than you lose. Doesn't mean you're going to win every game. So I think that game probably data-wise was the best game. Tough place to play down there in Arkansas. I don't know why I've never been to the stadium, but that is a tough place to win. And Arkansas had some injuries, but they were scrappy. Texas State, Jeff, that's an up-and-coming team. That team's, they're knocking on the door of being top 40 in both offense and defense. And I think that's a team that's going to win a bowl game. Could be our next kind of JMU type of team. Great football down there in Texas. Georgia, I love it, Jeff. Just when people think this Georgia team's done, they look like the most talented team in the country. I mean, that offense, Carson Beck, the quarterback of Georgia, they look like a pro team. So I'm super excited for this 12-team tournament, and I think at the end of the year, we're going to find out the best 2 teams. We're going to get them in a playoff, in a championship, and I can't wait, Jeff. It's going to be great. We've been taking notes all year. It's going to be an exciting kind of March Madness, football. I can't wait for it, Jeff. And, we're identifying kind of phonies out there. I think there are teams in the top 5, Jeff. I think Penn State's a bit of a phony. I think Oregon's a little soft, Jeff. So I don't think they are built for playoff football. Georgia is. Bama is. I think Tennessee's a team that is, Jeff. So if they can kind of sneak in the back door there, I wouldn't. Don't sleep on Tennessee, Jeff. That's a good team right there.
Okay. Fair enough. Fair enough. So taking a look at this week, how many college plays do we have?
So we've got 3 plays.
All right.
First one, Thursday night, Jeff, 7:30. We've got NC State at Georgia Tech. We are taking Georgia Tech. Currently, that line's at 9. If that line jumps to 10 or higher, we're going to relook at that, Jeff. But this line screams Georgia Tech. We have a 6-4 team in Georgia Tech hosting an NC State who's 5-5. Both teams have some decent results and some bad losses. But when we look at Georgia Tech's roster, this was a team that we highlighted in the beginning of the year. Haynes King, Jamal Haynes, the running back who's still a little banged up. But Haynes King, I thought was an outside, long shot, Heisman winner. Guy went down, had some injury problems for about a month. Last week he came back. That team looked phenomenal. When we punch the data, I don't think that NC State has the horses to keep up with Georgia Tech, especially at home. Georgia Tech looking to win out here, kind of increase their bowl chances and get into it. Even without Haynes King, through 3 or 4 weeks, we still have the 46th ranked offense. Their passing game slipped without him down to 65th in the country. But with that guy back in the lineup, that's a top 30 passing game. When we look at points scored, NC State actually averages more points. So, when NC State comes in averaging 28.6 a game, Georgia Tech averaging 24, you got to say to yourself, somebody knows something that I don't know, right? It's not all data based, or if it would be, then NC State would be favored. So when you have a team averaging 4 more points a game, getting 9 points, that tells me that Vegas, the sports books, know that Georgia Tech's a better team. I feel bad for Georgia Tech. I think they could have creeped into that top 12. No chance of that happening now, but they're still going to win out. A lot of pride. You got seniors that are trying to increase on draft picks too. So Georgia Tech -9 at home. Love it. Tough place to play Thursday night. Home teams on Thursday nights tend to win, Jeff. So we're riding this one. I love this game all day.
All right. So Georgia, you said Georgia Tech, correct?
Georgia Tech Thursday night -9 right now.
All right, Georgia Tech. Very good. All right, what's your next play?
So, we're gonna do the impossible, Jeff. We're gonna kind of thread the line here a little bit. Tennessee coming off a tough loss. They need a win, Jeff. They come into this game ranked 11th. So they lose it. They are out of this top 12 tournament. They've got a winning coach. I love this guy. They played well last week. I mean, when you look at the result last week, I think at the end of the day, they were not the caliber of team that Georgia was. I don't think that means they're a bad team. Georgia averages, Jeff, almost 15 points more a game at home than on the road. So Tennessee being there, the line kind of screams it. If we take 14 points away from Georgia last week, it's a tie ball game. So I love Tennessee. A lot of points, Jeff. And, I know you don't like big spreads, but, Pez's picks, we're not afraid of them. 41.5, they're laying to UTEP. When we look at UTEP, Jeff, I mean, 8th in Conference USA, which Conference USA is a glorified high school league. So they have beaten no one, Jeff. They beat Florida International University, which I've been on the campus. It's a nice place, Jeff, but they don't have a football team. And Kennesaw State. So I think we're going to look at Tennessee with an ultimate blowout. This is a no-huddle offense, a fast-paced team. When you punch the data, I think this line could even be a little underrated. Offensively, UTEP comes in 115th in the country. Defensively, 82nd. We're looking at Tennessee, who's a top 10 defense, 9th overall, 7th against the rush. I can't see UTEP scoring points, Jeff. I just can't see it. Lock it up, Tennessee, all day. I think they have to run it up. Their coaches know that. They're sitting at 11. A close game could push them out of this top 12. You never know with the voting, and who knows what the hell is going on with college, Jeff. I'm hearing now $100 million, possible salary cap they're going to install next year on these big name schools. So I think this is the year to go all out. Next year there could be rolls, Jeff. So I love Tennessee. 41 and a half, 42 points. We love them all day. I can see them putting up 60 on this team.
Did you say that the spread, or are you taking the over?
Oh, we're taking the spread, 41 and a half, Jeff. We're laying 41
is 41 and a half.
41 and a half. We love it.
Are they at home?
Jeff. They are at home. They are must-win game against UTEP.
My.
Who's UTEP, Jeff? We're not afraid of this school. UTEP comes into the game 2-8. They haven't beaten a D1A school, Jeff. So we love this game all day. 41 and a half. I think that's a bit of an insult. Last game, Jeff, we're going to go to nighttime. Get into the 7 o'clock hour here as I work my way down. Where are we, Jeff? I lost it. Lost my notes for a second here. I think there are lines that are bigger, Jeff, because at the end of the day, I think there are teams that are checking out as well. So I don't think the line should steer you away from taking a game. 41 and a half is probably no different than 4.5 if we have evenly matched teams. So we love this one. Last game, Jeff, you're going to love it again. Texas State, Jeff. Texas State hosting. I know people think Texas State, who is this team? Why would we take Texas State? When we look at the data, Jeff, Texas State comes in 35th ranked defense in the country, 6th ranked offense in the country. We talk about scheduling. They haven't played, an incredible schedule here. Their schedule is good enough that we can kind of rate them. They've played, Arizona State. They've played, even Arkansas State. Last week, Jeff, 58-3. When we look at the box score last week, and I think it'll be more of the same. Quarterback situation, 335, 4 touchdowns for their starter. 5 guys were running the ball left and right. We we look at the data at poor Georgia State. I don't even know some of these schools, Jeff. Uh, they're playing Chattanooga, Jeff. They're playing Appalachia State. They are not a team that's going to be able to compete with them. 106 ranked defense, and Texas State's offense is for real, Jeff. So we love them. Laying 20, Texas State. We love it all night. They get to 7-4, maybe 8-4. We're talking a pretty big bowl game. Probably the best season in the history of Texas State. I don't know, Jeff. I don't study them very often, but I got a guy on the ground down there. He said this team is for real. The quarterback's for real. And I watched that game last week. Phenomenal team, phenomenally coached, and they believe in themselves right now. That is a team that is playing to win and blow teams out, put the school on the map. Coaches are motivated. They win out here. They get to, maybe 8-4. You get some more recruits. Maybe they're in Indiana next year, Jeff. Who knows? But I love Texas State all day. This is our favorite game of the week.
All right, so the 3 plays Thursday night, NC State at Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech spotting 9. That's okay. Take Georgia Tech. Then we go to Tennessee, giving 41.5 to UTEP at home. You gave the reasoning. Take the Volunteers. And then lastly, Texas State spotting 20 to Georgia State. Yes, those are 2 real schools. And you're saying take Texas State once again for the second straight week.
Tough football down there, Jeff. Tough football down there in Tejas. Unless in Dallas, Jeff. Dallas is the only place they don't play good football right now.
All right, so now let's turn this page and look at the National Football League. We're coming off of I think it's our first losing week of the season, and here we are in week 12. So that's pretty amazing.
Unbelievable, Jeff.
I feel like, hold on, let's talk about the win. Philly, Washington, Thursday night. You took Philly minus 3.5. First half was putrid. And I was thinking, we're going to lose this freaking bet. We're going to lose this play. They end up rallying. But then I think you started drinking a little bit of your own Kool-Aid, taking the Jets, which I texted you this morning and said, I still can't believe you took the Jets.
Well, the 2 games we lost, Jeff, including the Jets, we're winning with, under 5 minutes left in the game and covering. So, like we talked about, if you're in that situation and the team you invested in is winning and covering in the last 5 minutes, you made the right call. Yeah. I think coaching errors and player errors are some things that you might take into account a little bit. Some teams are going to make fewer errors than others. Some quarterbacks are. But at the end of the day, I stand by that Jets play. They should have won that game, right, Jeff? I mean, this was over. And people are blaming Rodgers for that last pick, but the defense give up that last touchdown, unacceptable. And I guess it's the end of the Jets, Jeff. We apologized on Twitter. We won't be making that mistake again. If they won out starting with that game, they'll probably make the playoffs. I don't think that's a situation that's possible now. And same thing with Cincinnati, Jeff. I watched that game. That game was over. Fourth quarter, they're rolling. Game's over. They miss a field goal. Defense slumps their shoulders. So, and it's something that's going to happen. We're proud. 12 weeks in, losing week of the year. We only lost by 1 game. So we're going to take it, Jeff. We're proud of that week. It was a very tough card. The cards are getting tougher. We're into the situation in the NFL. This week we have 6 teams on bye. 6 teams on bye. You're cutting down the amount of games. And, there are teams like we talk about. The data gives you reasons not to take teams usually, right? So there are teams we've eliminated from taking. We're not going to be betting Tennessee anymore. We're not going to be betting teams that don't have consistent quarterback play or turn the ball over a lot. So pickings are slim, Jeff, but we're going to keep finding them. We're going to find 3 more winners this week, starting with your boys, Jeff. How can we not take these? Steelers at Browns, Jeff. I mean, how could we not? When we're a database system, Jeff. I don't know. This line currently at 3.5. Pittsburgh laying on the road.
It's the weather, man. It's the weather.
Pittsburgh's not. They're not affected by that, Jeff. Right? Bring it on. I mean, Pittsburgh unaffected by that. That's a tough team. Tomlin will probably be out there in a T-shirt, right? So, in the stat we like, the data we like the most. Steelers come into the game averaging almost 24 points a game. You've got the Browns averaging just over 16. That's a big margin, right? That's a 7-point line right there for us. I think that is more accurate than the current line. I think given the Browns 3 points, it's not a big commute for Pittsburgh to Ohio. When we look at the defense, Jeff, you've got the 4th-ranked defense in Pittsburgh up against the 29th-ranked running game in Cleveland with a suspect quarterback, Jameis Winston. Guy's not a rookie, but suspect play right so far. And the 29th running game, I think that spells doom for Cleveland. Look for Pittsburgh to win. I could see them 20 to 12 or something like that, Jeff. So Love this game. How could we not? I don't think it affects them. I don't think we're looking at a letdown coming off this. I think Tomlin's got these guys believing. And a great game last week, but it wasn't as physical a Pittsburgh, Baltimore game as we used to. I mean, it was physical, Jeff, but
Oh, it was
I
chippy as hell, man. They were fighting after plays. That was
chippy,
edgy.
Jeff, but it wasn't a pound game. It was
Right.
more of a lot of throwing the ball, Jeff. So
Yeah.
the league has changed, and we're not having Jerome Bettis pound into Baltimore anymore, and so Travis Henry. I mean, they stopped him. So I think Cleveland, short week, and a good coach. The way they look at these Sunday, Thursday games, they keep their team rolling and tell them, we win this. It's kind of a mini bye. They give them a couple days off. They get the weekend off. If I had, $50 million and I had the weekend off, these guys are going to Vegas, Jeff. They're renting private planes. So a lot of motivation from Pittsburgh. I'm not afraid of the weather. Russell Wilson, guy played in Seattle. I think it rains 90% of the days there anyway. So lock it up all day, Pittsburgh.
Okay.
3.5. 3.5. We're hoping that line doesn't move. I think 3.5 is solid. If we get to 4, maybe favors Cleveland a little more, but I still think we like them at 4 points.
Okay. What's your next play?
We're looking at Philly and Rams, Jeff. We're not going to announce it right now. We're going to keep looking at this right now. We're going to watch this line. One thing that's bothered the Philadelphia Eagles over the years are teams that have 2 or even 3, you could argue right now in LA, NFL wide receivers. Stafford, I hate betting against him, Jeff. We talked about how do we eliminate teams. Stafford is a guy that could burn you, if me or you were playing wide receiver out there. So, I like the line. I'm a little worried of feeling a little bit of a trap game. It's been moved to Sunday night. I don't know who that favors, Jeff. That's a long layoff for Philly. That's a tough commute. I mean, LA is all the way out there. So we're going to keep an eye on that one going forward.
What is the line?
Currently, the Rams are getting 3. So, that's something that, we're gonna punch the numbers, Jeff. And as we've talked about before, it's harder for me to take the Philadelphia Eagles because, of course, I think the Eagles are going to win every week. So I don't want to be some sort of fan gambler. The data's there, but Stafford to me is a dangerous guy to bet against. So we're going to hold off on that one right now. Our next day game, Houston over Tennessee, Jeff. I mean, I don't know how we can't take this game, especially – in Tennessee, we did mark them as one of our favorite, season total win games. Turns out that was a bad play, Jeff. But currently that line is 8, hosting Tennessee. Houston, much better team at home. I don't think it matters who's playing quarterback. Tennessee is banged up on the defensive side of the ball. They're banged up at center. And I think Houston has finally, kind of gotten their legs under them a little bit, Jeff. Offense, at the end of the day, incredibly talented with or without all their wide receivers. I think Stroud last week showed. I mean, when we look at the box score, that when you have Mixon high stepping, Jeff, one of the greatest things I've ever seen. First quarter, Mixon high stepping. He was Deion Sanders high stepping into Dallas's end zone, Jeff. So that team's got their swagger back. I think they're starting to figure out receiver a little bit. Nico Collins getting back into his rhythm. 4 catches last week. And I think that was a game to kind of get their legs back under them. And I think Houston knows they got to win ball games. They're not losing this game, Jeff. So 8-point line. I love it. I think Tennessee could be blown out. Look for a Stroud. That guy's due for a big game. Love it all day, Jeff.
Is that the last play?
We've got one more. Baltimore at LA, Jeff.
Oh, boy.
We talked last week, I believe 24% winning percentage for the Chargers. They did beat the Bengals last week. So I don't think they've beaten a team with a winning record, Jeff. Going into that game, the Bengals did not have a winning record. So I think they are still a little bit inflated. I think Cincinnati coughed that game up, like I talk about a lot. I don't think it's a high character team in Cincinnati. I don't think Burrow. I don't think that's a team that I don't think those guys are playing on Pittsburgh, right? So I think Chargers, that game we could see a little bit of a letdown. Baltimore, they're here to win a Super Bowl. It's a Monday night game. Baltimore's got a little bit more rest after that Pittsburgh game. And when's the last time you saw Lamar Jackson lose a primetime game, Jeff? This guy shows up. You got Lamar. You got Derrick Henry. I just don't think at the end of the day we can foresee that LA and Herbert are going to beat this team. I love it at +3. Baltimore, love them all day. Not a must-win situation, but kind of a must-win. Baltimore sounds way more like an 8-4 team than a 7-5 team. And, this is a team that, they're not going to lose. We're not going to see them string many losses in a row, Jeff. So, losing last week in a tight one, I think they come back. I think they put up 30 or 40 points on this team. And I think Herbert, got a little lucky last week. So we love that game, Monday night game, and Lamar under the lights and lock it up all day on Lamar.
So we mentioned in the Philadelphia game, obviously there's a lean there. Make sure you check out all of Pez's social media handles at Pez's Picks, both on Twitter and on Instagram. That's where you'll get the latest picks. But I do want to finish this show up with one quick question. You are an Eagles fan. You are openly admit that. Do you feel more confident because you follow the team so closely, or do you tend to overthink things? Because I can tell you, I do FanDuel. And I do daily fantasy on the weekends. And I've actually won a good bit of money this year doing this with a group of friends. And we just play every week because I know the Steelers so well. When do I struggle? I struggle when the Steelers are on a bye week and I have to pick guys from other teams.
Sure.
So I typically know where to go with the Pittsburgh Steelers and who they're playing. How do you deal with that in terms of gambling with your favorite team?
Well, I think when you have emotion involved in gambling, you're setting yourself up for a loss, Jeff. So, I don't really – I'm not invested in Baltimore or Pittsburgh, though I respect the team. So when I watch them, I analyze them more as an investment more than with my heart. For Philadelphia, I feel like I watch that team too much. So I think you can overthink things a little bit, and you can kind of second-guess your team. Like even last week, Philadelphia had a bad first half.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, all teams do. In a bad first half, as a fan, you look at it, but maybe that halftime score wasn't so bad. They're not getting blown out. I mean, it's a tight game. So I think watching a team every week kind of makes it hard to step back and see them from an investment standpoint. You know how players are performing. You know the drama of the team. I think the Eagles, though, it's a tough thing to do. It's a tough thing to travel to LA and win games, especially when you're going up against Stafford. McVay's a great coach, and I think LA is a little bit of an underrated team right now. It's kind of only thing hesitating this a little bit.
All right, good stuff. Well, any final thoughts on the week?
Jeff, we're gearing up. We're going to wait for this stupid NBA playoff or whatever cup. I don't know what the hell they're doing with this NBA, Jeff. There's some sort of mini tournament. We're waiting for that. We're jumping back into the NBA. I don't think these are regular games. I don't know what they're doing, Jeff. What is the NBA doing? What is this NBA Cup? Who are they kidding? They're playing the same teams, Jeff, right? I just saw a stat on ESPN that the Lakers are the best cup team. What does that mean, Jeff? I don't know. Having said that, the Lakers, they've got a new rookie. They got a shooting guard. We've been punching the data on them. I think it is smarter to dip your toes into the pool slowly in NBA gambling. It's still November. I don't know if everybody's even playing right, Jeff. I don't think they're really busting themselves out there. Jimmy Butler's back on the court finally. So I think another week or so, we should start having some more data and some more set rosters. And we'll be laying some action on that starting soon.
All right. Love it. Love it. Make sure you check out again Pez's Picks on all social media handles, mainly Twitter and Instagram at Pez's Picks. Thanks, man. Thanks for your time. Enjoy the games. We'll talk next week.
Let's do it, buddy.
All right. See ya.
See ya.